What's up? What's up? It's your boy Dom. You know, first S.C.P. we gonna be reacting to S.C.P. 1879. So let's get into it. Man, let's talk about it, baby. Shit, my bad.
Washington State, USA, burst into life. It's just picked up evidence of anomalous activity. The scanner is programmed to pick out a few key phrases, and this present call contains all of them.
Knocking, door, disappearing, won't leave.
And most importantly,
Salesman.
an alarm blares and Mobile Task Force Row 4 prepares to mobilize. But even as they armor up and assemble their weapons, the sense of morale is low. The MTF, nicknamed Shoes Salesman, was formed entirely to go after one anomalous entity, and after a dozen missions, they've never been able to contain it. Still, there's work to be done. If the anomaly can't be contained, there will be amnestic to administer, items to be confiscated, and in the absolute worst-case scenario, cleanup to be done. The MTF agents load into their Foundation's standard tactical vehicles and speed towards the source of the 911 call that, if they're right, marks the appearance of SCP-1879. This SCP is Keter class, not because of its incredible size or power, but simply because its anomalous properties make it completely impossible to contain. Anywhere where there's a door, this SCP can manifest and disappear just as quickly. The only stroke of luck on the Foundation's part is that, at least at the time of recording, SCP-1879 has only ever manifested within Washington State. It also only seems to manifest through interior doors, never doors which lead outside. The phenomenon consists of two parts. SCP-1879-1 is the door, which can be any door to any room but will remain unchanged throughout the manifestation, and SCP-1879-2, a Caucasian man of unclear age who stands at about 5 feet 7 inches or 170 centimeters and dressed in an old-fashioned suit and hat. The Foundation refers to this man as the indoor salesman, and as name suggests, he behaves and carries himself like the door-to-door salesman who used to go from town to town selling vacuum cleaners and encyclopedias back in the pre-internet days. The strangest things about him, aside from how he can appear anywhere, are the payment he requests for the products he sells. Oh, and the fact that once he started his sales pitch, there's no way of getting him to leave. This phenomenon was first witnessed by the Foundation on June 3, 1996, when agents arrived at the home of Miss Shirley Yates of Seattle. Early in the afternoon, a persistent knocking started from inside her bathroom and wouldn't stop until she opened it. Once she did, a man appeared, dressed in an old-fashioned suit, carrying a briefcase in one hand, and to her surprise, a puppy in the other. She tried closing the door on him, only to have him show up in other rooms of the house. She called the police multiple times, but at the time, they were unsure how seriously to take the call. It was only after the third one did they even consider sending a car out. The following account of events is transcribed from a recording taken of the initial encounter with SCP-1879, recorded by Agent Rogers. First, Rogers enters the home. The salesman is speaking rapidly at an increasingly distressed Mrs. Yates, holding a juvenile border collie out towards her. Rogers tries to speak to Miss Yates, only for the salesman to shift his focus onto Rogers.
"Oh good, maybe you'll listen to sense,"
says the salesman.
"I got this dog, but I can't keep it, so I thought maybe Shirley'd like this."
Rogers tries to ask the salesman how he knows Shirley, but the salesman cuts him off.
"Just look at him, he's so sad. I just don't want to see him sad, and I really can't have him anymore, personal reasons, you know. Really, all I'm asking for is some of your time."
While Rogers keeps him talking, other MTF agents have positioned themselves on either side of the salesman. One of them grabs him by the arm, the other has a towel from the kitchen that they're able to shove into his mouth, cutting him off mid-sales pitch. Rogers sighs and gives a signal to the other agents.
"We're taking him back to the site to interrogate him."
As soon as the agents drag the salesman through the front door, though, he vanishes out of their hands. The kitchen towel drops to the ground.
Crazy.
Immediately, the sound of the salesman's voice is heard again from inside the house. Mrs. Yates is, at this point, in tears.
"It doesn't cost any money, I promise,"
says the salesman.
"Just 12 years of your time."
Rogers orders 6 of his men to surround the salesman and keep him in the room. But worn down by hours of harassment, Mrs. Yates agrees to take the puppy. Once she does, she vanishes. The salesman smiles.
pleasure doing business with you.
While the agents are distracted looking for any sign of Mrs. Yates, the salesman steps into a hallway closet and vanishes. The recording ends here. Our records of the case indicate that Mrs. Yates's family were amnesticized following her disappearance. 12 years later, she reappeared in her house, having not aged and having no concept of how much time had passed. This event was bizarre, but further manifestations showed that the salesman was capable of much worse. This was the case with Mr. Devin Pierce of Walla Walla, who the salesman offered a single red rose. The requested payment, "All I want is your heart." Pierce begrudgingly accepted. He was sure to let the salesman know that he didn't swing that way, but he'd accept the terms since it was almost Valentine's Day and the salesman had promised to leave. The two of them shook hands, then Pierce took the rose. The salesman left through the same office door he'd entered from. The agents chased after him, but he'd seemingly vanished as soon as he'd crossed the threshold. Back in the living room, they heard a loud crash. As soon as Pierce took the rose, he hit the floor, dead. Our agents embedded in the county coroner's office were able to spin his death as sudden cardiac arrest, but an autopsy later revealed what we'd suspected at the time. His heart was completely gone. That's just one example of the indoor salesman's twisted sense of humor. Like the fairies and genies from old folktales, he takes things literally, and any strange payments he requests should probably be interpreted in the worst, most esoteric way possible. For example, in one case, he asked the affected person if she'd agreed to pay him in exposure, which caused her to disappear from her home and reappear 60 miles, 96 kilometers away on the slopes of Mount Rainier, frozen to death. Another man was asked to pay in experience, and he promptly lost his memory of his entire life following high school graduation. Another victim of the indoor salesman was told, "I could really use your support," only to have all of their bones vanish from inside their body. MTF Row 4 hoped today's interaction with the salesman doesn't go that badly. With any luck, it'll be more like the time where the salesman, in exchange for 220 bananas, told the homeowner to give him some sugar before making all of the sweets in the house vanish. That one only resulted in the application of mild amnestics, the victim's children being upset, and the family needing to eat a lot of banana bread and banana smoothies for the next 6 months. The task force's aim now, by any means necessary, get the salesman to give up any information at all about where he comes from and, more importantly, what he wants. They arrive at the Tacoma apartment building where the manifestation happened and run up the stairs to the victim's apartment. The door opens, and the owner of the apartment is apparently alone again. Rogers asks what happened, and she says she just wanted to get rid of him. On inspection, agents find a thermonuclear warhead in the kitchen. It's judged to be non-anomalous, but still extremely deadly, and is quickly carted off to non-anomalous storage. Agent Rogers asks the woman if the salesman wanted anything, and she explains that he'd asked for her soul. Further examination of the woman proved that she was physiologically unchanged, but further investigation found that 2 of her vinyl records, Lady Soul and Almighty Fire by soul legend Aretha Franklin, were missing. Amnestics are administered where needed, and Agent Rogers and his men pack up and leave. Another failed attempt to capture the salesman, and this time it feels almost like he's making fun of them. But then, the team gets a lucky break. The police scanner detects a possible manifestation in the same town on the same day. Maybe this time, the Foundation will get something they can work with. The black bands appear outside the home. 6 agents approach the front door. The rest are sent out to amnesticize the neighbors who have come out to see what's going on. The owner of the home, Mr. John Grayson, has been hearing knocking and voices from inside his laundry room for the past 6 hours. Based on new orders given by Rogers to embedded S.C.P. agents within police, Mr. Grayson has been instructed to keep the door closed until the authorities arrive. When the team's there, Mr. Grayson tells Rogers that in addition to the knocking, he's also heard the salesman's voice from inside the laundry room. He's been getting agitated. His cheerful demeanor is beginning to crack, revealing desperation underneath. This might be what the Foundation needs to find out more about the salesman's true motive. Before opening the door, Rogers tells Mr. Grayson to leave the room. Rogers turns on his recorder and stands by the door. His plan pays off. After a few more minutes of the salesman yelling to Mr. Grayson through the door, Rogers is able to record him talking to himself.
"I have to meet the quota by tomorrow," the salesman grumbles, "or else I have to stay in this world for the next century."
After complaining to himself, he resumes his cheerful voice for a second, trying once more to get the homeowner's attention.
"Hey, I know you're there,"
he shouts to no response.
"Spare a moment of your time?"
He lowers his voice.
Why does the boss even need this stuff anyways?
Then the agents hear the tinny sound of an old cell phone ringing. Then clicking open, the knocking stops.
Yes, boss.
A pause while the person on the other line responds. Rogers can't make out words, but whoever the other voice is, they aren't happy. The salesman continues.
I know, that's not what you meant by soul. I just thought you'd get a kick out of it.
He's cut off again by the voice on the other line.
Yes, sir, I will. Yes, I'm sorry, it won't happen again. Please don't hurt it. I'll meet the quota this time, I swear.
The phone snaps closed, and the salesman puts it away.
I better get to move up to at least accounting this time,
he mutters under his breath. At this point, he resumes knocking and doesn't say anything else. Eventually, Rogers realizes he's not going to get anything else, and he opens the door. The salesman is all smiles. Until he recognizes Rogers from previous encounters, his smile drops immediately.
Hello, Mr. you. Hi.
Hello, Rogers says curtly. Now, I'd like to ask you... Even when cornered, the salesman doesn't miss a beat. He cuts Rogers off and starts ranting in the same upbeat, pushy tone he uses for his sales pitches.
Now, see, let's think logically.
The salesman puts his hand up in a gesture of good faith.
You know I'm not going to tell you anything. I know you're not likely to buy what I'm selling, so let's just move on to greener pastures. I'm coming up close to a deadline, and I'm sure you're swamped with making sure good people don't do their jobs, so I'll just be on my way and let you do that. Ciao.
He tips his hat and tries to pull the door closed, but Rogers holds it open, motions toward the other agents, grab the salesman and detain him. If they're not going to be able to take him anywhere, they might as well try and interrogate him right here and now. Rogers raises his gun, a reminder that he could use deadly force if it came down to it.
Now, you gonna talk to me?
The salesman shrugs.
Look, I'm busy, so I'll tell you what.
The salesman says.
I'm going to give you something. No money out of your pocket, and we'll call it even. Sound good?
Rogers didn't even have to agree to the terms of this offer. Within just 3 seconds of the salesman's question, every agent present, Rogers included, pulled over in pain and started coughing up blood. Within minutes, all of them were dead. The salesman decided to cut his losses and leave, walking back out through the laundry room door and disappearing. The cause of death of the entire MTF team was confirmed to be massive internal bleeding, caused by the manifestation of coins in their digestive tract and epidermis. The salesman would be spotted the next day as well, in the same neighborhood, but demanifested before the Foundation was able to take action. The indoor salesman is a curious anomaly for a number of reasons, but of particular interest to me is the fact that he doesn't seem to be doing what he does of his own free will. While his twisted deals often lead in deadly directions, this isn't always the case. The call overheard by Agent Rogers suggests that perhaps the less violent payments taken by the salesman are a sort of compromise based on his boss's non-specific instructions. Furthermore, it's clear that the salesman is only doing this in the hope to put it at least to accounting. But what exactly that means for him, to say until he knows he works for. All we know is that he's trapped to some degree in our world until he completes his job. That just leaves the question of who Ellen works for. From details we can't say for certain if it's any known groups of interest. All we do know is that it's an organization with employees to have an accounting department and that the boss is, among things, interested in the acquisition of human souls. This doesn't really narrow it down at all, as the Foundation is aware of a number of sinister, anomalous corporate entities who profit off of random death and destruction. Back on the subject of the phone call, I'm intrigued by the recorded quote, "Don't hurt it." Clearly the boss is holding something over the salesman's head, but the use of "it" would suggest it isn't a person, as you might expect. Maybe the salesman is referring to his own soul. Perhaps the boss is holding it until a time in the future when he sees fit, or it could be simpler and more mundane than that. Maybe the "it" in question is an animal, even a pet. Perhaps the dog who sired that adorable puppy that the salesman was so eager to pawn off onto Mrs. Yates. Thank you for watching Dr. Bob. In a world full of sinister, inhuman forces like demonic salesmen and lazy AI-created content, I appreciate you supporting something human-made. Every view and comment supports me in my quest to investigate the anomalous, and hopefully put food on the...
Yo, anyway.
I'm from the city where they Millie rock and giving guap to the bitches that be giving top. Low key in the cut, hot in front of cops. But kids don't say a thing cause they like to watch. Like it's cool, but they don't know some grown men fools. I ain't talking just to talk cause I've been through it too young.